Bentley.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
nice
man.
to see you. What's up, James?
Always
How
a
are you?
pleasure. Well, we've known each other 20 years?
2004. 2004.
So 16,
Your ex-wife and my
15 years?
ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, so
God.
a long time. And in that time, Bentley Meeker Lighting and Staging has become, if not the premier lighting and staging company in New York, certainly one of the most highly respected.
Well, thank you.
And I would like to talk to you about how you think about light. It's I think, the single most overlooked and ultimately probably the most important aspect of building an apartment and making it feel like you want it to feel. So tell us about light.
I think you kind of nailed it. You really, honestly, when you said feel the way you want it to feel,
Yeah.
is probably the first and foremost element of what lighting really is that it's not about light. It's not even about shadow, although shadow is as important as the light itself. It's really about the way that you want to feel.
Yeah.
And kudos, bro. You nailed that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go into building an apartment, building a space, and they saw an awesome mirror in some hotel in Budapest, and they saw this great bathroom in this club in Paris, and they saw this great deck.
I know that bathroom.
Yeah, quite probably. This great deck at Nikki Beach in St. Bart's. It's like and they end up with all these post-it notes all over them, and they buy all this stuff, and when it's finished,
There's no
it
cohesiveness
looks
to it,
great,
yeah.
but it doesn't feel how they want it to feel. And I think a lot of that's brought together with going into the design process with how do you want to feel before you start, but secondly, they often ignore lighting completely, or not completely, but it's very much an afterthought. LED light, and how we're introducing LED light into everything, and how LED light works. Yeah.
So from a human standpoint, our relationship to light is relegated to two main buckets. The first being visibility.
Yeah.
The second being energy efficiency. So you don't really think about light without thinking about how you can save money on your light.
Yeah.
Would you think that way about your pillows? Would you think that way about your bed sheets? Would you think that way about your car? I mean, I'm sure you probably think that way in some form.
Yeah, some aspect
about
of it.
all of those things. But do you think about that as the main prevalent aspect after the functionality, like sleeping on your pillow, getting the cheapest pillow that you can,
Or a piece of wood.
or a piece of wood? Okay, so are you gonna finish that with birch ply, or are you gonna finish that with MDX?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like so that becomes the big question is like, why do we look at light as visibility first and then energy efficiently second, but second by a nose?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And I think that therein lies kind of the big conundrum. It's like, if you're willing to give a little more on the electrical side, if you're willing to give a little bit more in terms of like light bulbs in the future, what you can get is you can get the feeling that you're really looking for, and that's a really hard thing to get people to understand.
Why does light change the way it feels? What is it about light when you go at high energy efficiency versus light that's, the least efficient form of light, I'm guessing, is fire?
Well, you're doing the segment for me, bro. I love it. So
I think a lot about light. I love light. It's the most. It's so important.
So here's something that was told to me by a designer that really, actually, sort of fundamentally shaped my point of view on it. I had an understanding of that light affects us in a particular way. I didn't have an understanding of necessarily why, but the way that this guy said it resonated with me. He said that with fluorescent, and more importantly with the proliferation of LED light, what you've got for the first time in history is you've got visibility that wasn't created by something burning.
Yeah.
So the sun burns, lightning is some kind of burning something, you know what I'm saying? You've got firelight. Those were really up until the mid-1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the mid-1800s, you had fire and you had daylight. Those were the two things that were created by something burning. So from an evolutionary standpoint, physiologically, from when we were salamanders all the way up until about 150 years ago, we were in light that was burning, and then all of a sudden one day we were in light that wasn't burning because it was electric, but you know what? It was glowing in a very
Still
hot
developed
way.
by heat.
So it was kind of a burning anyways.
Yeah.
And up until 1901 when they developed fluorescent lights, but more importantly up until probably 2011 when LEDs started becoming prevalent in the house, you didn't really have experience with visibility in light that wasn't created by something burning.
Right. A
And
world
so-
lit only by fire.
as it was for,
Beginning of time.
billions of years.
Until basically
Yeah.
sort of 1850, something like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, but again, like I said, when you have a filament glowing, it's still
It's
a
still
kind of a
heat.
burning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a very similar process. When you started getting phosphors that were charged by electrons, when you start getting LEDs that are,
Yeah.
it's a whole different kind of a thing.
Why?
So-
Why is it different? What is it? What's the difference between being lit by something that's essentially getting hot
Yeah.
versus being lit by something that's created by photons and electrons being energized in different ways?
I mean, I'm single, and I get lit by things that are hot all the time.
I get it.
I think going back to the lighting for a second there. I don't understand why, because I'm not a scientist. I'm really more of an artist.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is that I'm intimately familiar with the sensibility. And so when we use lighting, and we don't do as much architectural lighting as maybe other people do, but we do a lot more event lighting, so we have a lot of ephemeral experiences with people and their behavior and their reactions.
Your
under
lighting
light.
is all about creating an experience.
It's all about creating experience, it's all about creating atmosphere, it's all
Yeah.
about creating ambiance, it's all about creating that feeling that you were talking about in the beginning of the segment here.
Well, it's actually, funnily enough, a lot of the
Yeah.
residential lighting is not actually aimed at creating a feeling. It's much more functional. So your angle of
functional.
lighting is actually much more feeling oriented than typical architectural lighting.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that, in architecture, you've got certain leads restrictions, you've got certain lumens per watt, lumens per square foot.
Yeah.
That so there are all these sort of rings that you have to find nexuses between. But I think that when you're going back into creating a feeling, at the end of the day, it's like you can still check off all those boxes that you have to for the Department of Buildings, that you have to for leads or whatever you're doing, and you can still create a feeling and you can still create a sensibility. And you know what? I'll tell you what, if you have a halogen light in your house and you dim it down to where you want it, because that's where it feels good,
Yeah.
you're burning just about as much electricity as you are when you have LEDs, and you're quadrupling, maybe quintupling the length of your lamp life.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, now instead of 1,000 or 2,000 hours, you're looking at 5,000 or 10,000 hours of lamp life.
Yeah.
And you're getting the feeling that you want. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So think about it. And when you start to actually do the math, you start to create an equation that starts to look a lot like the efficiency that you're doing, but you have to think about the way you use light. You have to
Yeah.
think about the way you implement it in your life. People turn on the switch and go make dinner.
Yeah.
You know what
And
I mean?
then finish making dinner and go and have a
And-
bar and leave everything on.
And leave everything on.
Full
and,
tilt.
And guess what? So you don't care about your light. You don't think about your light. But you ate dinner in that light.
Yeah.
And that didn't seem like dinner light to me.
Yeah.
But more importantly is that I think what you really don't think about in these equations is you don't think about what I call the phantom carbon footprint.
Okay.
So you're looking at LED energy efficiency. But let's just say you walk into your house, you turn the lights on bright in your living room, and you sit down, and you're talking to your wife, and you don't feel good. You just have this sort of latent, resident, not good feeling. So what do? Probably you get up, and you go somewhere. If you're in New York City, you walk out and you go buy a slice of pizza. You go buy this, or you go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
You do things. But with all of that, but if you're not in New York, if you're somewhere else in the country, you're getting in your car, you're driving. There's fuel. There's wear and tear on your car. There's where you go. There's what you consume where you go. There's the packaging behind where you go. There's the staff that had to drive to the place to where you went. There's the shipping that had to go into whatever you're consuming in that moment. So when you start to add back all of that carbon that went into creating all of the things that you're doing just to get the hell out of your light, what are we talking about? Like, what are we really talking about in terms of savings? I mean, how much of your tires did you burn? How much wear and tear on your car?
How much fuel do you use?
How much fuel do you use?
Tell me about not feeling good in certain
Yeah.
kinds of light generated away from the heat spectrum. What is it about that kind of light, do you think, changes the way people feel?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that question, bro.
Oh, really?
No, that's good. It's good.
I can ask you one on sport if you prefer.
Yeah, let's talk about Arsenal for a minute. So anyway, going back to it, again, like I said, those might be sort of the physiological component about why we don't feel good might be more of a scientist question, and I'd refer you to Columbia University. I think has a phenomenal light lab up there that might be able to answer those questions better than I can. But I can tell you one thing: we will not put people in light that is LED. We won't do it. So if we use LEDs, and we use them a lot because they're easy, they're convenient, they're battery operated, the colors are readily available on a whim. So if the client wants to change something, we can accommodate. But when you create a bed of light for the people, I always use halogen for that. I won't allow any of my designers to do anything but halogen. Because it's light that we recognize, it's light that we feel good in, and it's light that I know that will make people feel the best that they can possibly feel in an environment. So I don't care about you. I don't care about you looking at something that's LED, but I care deeply about you being embedded in something that's LED.
So my understanding of it, because I'm a bit of a secret nerd about this sort of thing.
Are you really?
Yeah, I love it. I love it because I noticed I changed all my lights out in my apartment like 2012 to LED. And as you know, I've got a
we went through a little saga with that. I think we changed them back pretty quick.
Basement apartment.
Yeah.
And after like 3 months, Julie was like, "What is it about? I'm so anxious down here." And it's when you did this, you got this strobing effect, which you didn't really notice until you looked for it. And then you got this really significant strobing effect. And we turned all the lights back, we changed it. It cost us like $3,000 to change all the bulbs. We changed all the bulbs back to halogen and it went away. So I started to do a bit of reading about it. And what I found was that if you look at a spectrum, and again, like you, I'm not a scientist, I'm just a secret nerd. So I looked at the light spectrum that comes from the sun, and you've got all the way down to ultraviolet and gamma rays at one end, and you've got infrared
on the other side.
At the other side. And what I noticed is that they take the infrared out, is one of the main things. But also the light seems to be created on very particular wavelengths. So 720 nanometers for red, and then whatever it is for 350 nanometers for blue.
I'll tell you what it is. I think it's a lot simpler than that. Alternating current alternates at 60 hertz per second.
Yeah.
And so what happens is with LEDs,
that's flashing 60 times per second.
Yeah, it's flashing 60 times a second. So what happens is you're getting 60 hertz of flash, and then all of your lighting is probably on the same leg of electricity. So if you actually wanted to eliminate that, and it's possible to eliminate, what you do is you take your red leg and you put one light on it, and then the next adjacent light you attach to the blue leg, and then the next adjacent light to that you attach to the black leg.
Yeah.
So what happens is
everything's out of phase.
Well, everything's completely on different legs, and then it's on different phases. So what happens is that one's up, one's down. So you'll certainly get a little bit of that flicker, just like with halogen light. You're getting the same flicker in halogen light, but it can't dim quickly enough.
It never
before it gets its next hit of
electricity. It never gets completely off.
So what happens is that it doesn't. So if you actually doubled and you actually put the and again, we're getting into like more scientific electrical stuff, but if you actually took the wave of halogen and you doubled the wave that you would get twice the brightness on a halogen light bulb. You'd use twice the electricity, but you get twice the brightness. And we used to have little boxes that we would use. We get like 2,000 watts out of a 1,000 watt light by actually taking the alternating current, and you'd get one hit and you'd get another hit. Yeah. And so the electricity would never cross because that's where you get explosions. But what would happen is that you would absolutely get double the intensity because the light bulb was now never allowed to relax.
Got it.
With halogen, the light bulb relaxes. So it's on, off, but it only goes off to here. So it's on,
never
off,
goes
on,
all
off,
the way
off.
off.
So it
whereas
just
LED
and it finds its water level. LED goes off completely.
100% off.
Yeah. So again, in my very incredibly unscientific way of explaining it, I think if you alternated legs where every third light or every fourth light was on the same leg, what you'd find is you'd eliminate a lot of that.
Yeah.
A lot of that
flickering.
Which, by the way, I can't stand. It drives me crazy. It really drives me crazy. I can't believe she made it 3 months. I would make it 3 hours.
What I often walk down the street with Julie when we're walking along, and you'll see this restaurant like here, and you look in and you've got this beautiful brown, yellow warmth coming out of the restaurant, and it's like, oh, that looks nice. You don't know what they sell. It could be any kind of restaurant, but it's got this. You've got this feeling that you want to go in, and then you walk to the one next door, very similar furniture, and it's empty, and the white light that's coming out of it is so sterile.
Right.
And it's like halogen, LED.
But they're saving $700 a month on their electric bill.
Yeah, they are. And it's interesting how you can see this stuff, and also how people set their lighting up. I think it was, we had a conversation a couple of years ago where you talked about how light comes from above and how light comes from the horizon, and how different times of the day human beings are used to being outside, light from above means we're out hunting and gathering and building and doing what we're doing. And as the sun starts to set, then people start to go back into the community, light fires. So when we're thinking about designing lighting, putting lighting at eye level for evening setting actually starts to bring down your energetic feeling of the room, so that you're now in this, light is now
So you're
at a
kind of
point.
playing with circadian rhythms a
That's
little bit.
right. You're playing with the circadian rhythm.
Really
You're
nice.
playing with horizons, so that you're actually, reduce the overhead light, but bring up the light at eye level.
That'd be a great name for a band, Circadian Rhythms.
Circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
There we go, man.
Actually I think I might steal that one.
All you, man.
Yeah,
All
thank you. No, I think that's a really good idea. I think it's a really great idea. I think that, again, people don't put any energy or any thought into their relationship to light.
No.
And if I have a mission in this world, and I do have a mission in this world, it's really to connect humanity and light.
Yeah.
Far transcendent to lighting parties or lighting houses or lighting restaurants or whatever the project at hand might be. There's a deeper relationship that we really don't have. And so how much stuff in the world happens? I mean, let's talk about this for a second. Let's talk about the guy who approves bombing missions in Iraq and Afghanistan during the Gulf War. You know what I mean?
Okay, and we're going to tie this back into lighting real quick.
Sitting in the basement.
Yeah.
He's got his wife calling him up, telling him he's got to come home. He's got one bomb that he could approve without any approvals whatsoever, and it'll decimate the whole block. He's got another bomb that's going to cost 10 times as much, but it'll just take out the building where the guy is. Okay? He's sitting under this fluorescent light all day, every day, all week in some basement somewhere in Marfa, Texas or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And he's going crazy in that space, and his wife's on the phone. He's calling. What's he going to do? Is he going to fight for that expensive thing, or is he going to actually just approve the little thing and then go? You know what I mean? So what happens is that he could be in an environment where he would want to be, and then he would make his best choices.
Yeah.
But he being in an environment, this is all hypothetical, mind you, but he being in an environment where he doesn't want to be, because they're trying to save money on the electric bill, and they're using fluorescent light that flickers at 60 hertz per second, approves the cheaper one, and 100 people died that don't need to die.
It's a radical example. But what you see this in offices every day.
See it in offices every day. Do you really think they're keeping your best interests at heart when you don't have their best interests at heart?
And the same with hospitals. You walk into hospitals and it's just thousands of fluorescent lights all flickering on and off in this totally unnatural environment. If people, if you ever spend time at places like an office waiting room and the lighting, I get this anxiety after a while. It's like, come on, man, I need to get out of here. And it's definitely. And then you walk out, especially at conferences. You walk out into the California sun or the Florida sun. It's like, oh my God, it's so nice to be outside.
Vegas sun.
Yeah, the Vegas sun.
I spent a month in Weill Cornell on 68th Street.
Okay.
When their father died. And one thing that I really couldn't believe is I couldn't believe that they expect people to get better under this light.
Under this light?
Yeah, they expect them to get better. It's like, how do you expect them to get better? It's like, how do you expect them with their nervous systems to be tweaked, to be healing?
When you turn the lights on and off 60 times a second.
60 times a second.
And everything's on full tilt.
Every second that you're in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As well as the lack of acoustics, so everything's echoing and people are shouting, there's people are groaning, you've got this light, it's like, oh my God. Light is...
They killed him in a month. They killed him in a month. You know what I mean? I couldn't believe it. You know what I mean? It was like, I think that he just, at some point you just lose your will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if you had to be under that stuff all day, every day, you see people who work under that kind of light after 20, 30 years in an office. They're not the people that they could have been.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that they can do about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's so true. Having an environment where the office lighting or your home lighting is as close to developed by heat as possible. So even if we augment, you put sconces and stuff and you put some halogen, if you've got lots of daylight coming in, it's fine. Much halogen.
Yeah, if you got a lot of daylight, you're good.
But if you've got a space that doesn't have a lot of natural light, then definitely, in my experience, augment your LED light with as much as much incandescent and halogen as you can, just to get that full spectrum.
That's the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about it. And so a lot of times what we'll do in a certain situation is if you have to light everything LED, we'll light it all LED, but we'll run 12 gauge wire to every outlet.
Yeah.
We'll run 12 gauge wire to every
And
light
then you can
fixture.
put your
And then
standing
we
lamps.
just swap the lights out. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Swap
put
them
your
out.
standing
And then
lights.
you've got, you have the electrical capacity to do it. If you build the electrical capacity to do it in the first place,
Yeah.
nobody's going to say, oh, well, you overbuilt this, it's not to code.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, you can, you've got the electrical capacity, you've got the breaker
Yeah, you can
average, and you
swap it
can
out.
just swap the bulbs out. So it's kind of sexy.
Bentley, man, it's always a pleasure
Yeah.
chatting with you. Thank you for your infinite wisdom.
Same, brother.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate it.